Justice served.
I've been asked more than once why I tell stories like this, why I dig into the past, pull out old wounds, and share them with strangers on the internet. And honestly, it's not about revenge anymore. It's not even really about anger. It's about closure. It's about taking something that once made me feel small and reshaping it into something that might help someone else feel a little bigger. My name is Vera Chen. I spent years in corporate America, climbing, grinding, smiling when I didn't want to, nodding in meetings where I was the only woman in the room. I learned how to speak their language, how to dress the part, how to make myself just soft enough to be likable, but sharp enough to be taken seriously. It's a tightrope walk, and if you're a woman reading this, you know exactly what I mean. But here's the thing about tightropes. Eventually, someone shakes the wire. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can fall, or you can learn to fly. This story is about the day I stopped walking carefully. The day I stopped apologizing for taking up space. The day I realized that the people who call you too emotional are often the ones most terrified of how much power you actually have. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear is a true story about betrayal, corporate cruelty, and the kind of poetic justice that doesn't need to raise its voice, because the data speaks loud enough.
My boss thought I'd never fight back. He was wrong. Let me paint you a picture. It's a Tuesday morning, 9:47 a.m., in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor. I'm sitting across from my manager, let's call him Derek, and two HR representatives I've never seen before. There is a manila folder on the table between us. My name is printed on the tab. Derek leans back in his chair, fingers steepled like he's about to deliver a sermon. He says, voice dripping with faux concern, "We're just worried you're getting a little too emotionally invested in your work. It's affecting your judgment." I remember the way the fluorescent light buzzed overhead, the way my coffee had gone cold in my hand, the way one of the HR reps wouldn't make eye contact. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I smiled, nodded, and said, "I understand." What I didn't say, what I couldn't say, not yet, was that I'd been documenting everything for 3 months. Every email, every Slack message, every piece of credit he'd stolen, every idea he'd repackaged as his own, every woman on the team he'd undermined with that same word, emotional. I didn't plan revenge that day, but life, and a very detailed Excel spreadsheet, had other plans.
Before everything fell apart, I actually loved my job. I worked for a mid-sized tech consultancy in Denver, one of those companies that prides themselves on disruption and innovation, but still uses the same PowerPoint template from 2011. My official title was Senior Data Analyst, but like most women in corporate America, I wore about 17 different hats. Analyst, mediator, note-taker, emotional labor distributor, professional smile and nodder. The office itself was your standard open floor plan nightmare. Rows of standing desks, motivational posters that said things like, "Fail fast, learn faster," and a kitchen stocked with LaCroix and stale Kind bars. The air always smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. Keyboards clattered in uneven rhythms. People spoke in hushed tones near the water cooler, glancing over their shoulders like they were trading state secrets instead of gossiping about who got promoted. I liked my coworkers well enough. There was Jenna, a junior analyst who made TikToks during lunch breaks and always had the best playlists. There was Sam, a developer who never looked up from his monitor but could debug code faster than anyone I'd ever met. And then there was Priya, my work wife, the only other woman on my team who understood what it felt like to be constantly talked over in meetings. We had this unspoken language, the glance across the table when a man repeated your idea and got credit for it, the shared sigh when someone said, "Let's keep this collaborative," which really meant you're going to do all the work and I am going to take all the credit. But I loved the work itself. I loved wrangling messy datasets into something clean and meaningful. I loved building dashboards that told a story. I loved the moment when a client's face lit up because finally, someone had made sense of their chaos. I was good at my job, better than good. I had a 98% client satisfaction rate. I'd brought in 3 major accounts in the last year alone. I'd trained half the junior staff. I wasn't just competent, I was indispensable. Or so I thought. Derek joined the company about 8 months before everything went sideways. He came in hot, hired from a competitor, mid-40s, Silver Fox energy, expensive watch, firm handshake, the kind of guy who said, let's circle back and synergy without a trace of irony. In his first all-hands meeting, he talked about elevating the team and empowering voices. Everyone nodded. A few people even applauded. I'll admit it, I liked him at first. He seemed smart, thoughtful. He asked questions in meetings, real questions, not the performative kind meant to show off. He complimented my work on a client presentation. He bought the team lunch after we closed a tough deal. For a few weeks, I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd finally gotten a manager who actually valued his people. But charm is a slow-acting poison. It started small. He'd ask for my input on a project, then present my ideas in the next meeting as if they'd come from him. The first time, I thought it was an accident. The second time, I noticed. The third time, I said something. Hey, Derek, just to clarify, that segmentation strategy we discussed yesterday, I can take the lead on that if you want. He smiled. Oh, I've got it covered, but thanks for the support. Support. Like I was his assistant, like I hadn't drafted the entire approach. Then came the Slack messages, little things. Hey, can you take notes in today's meeting? I was the only woman in the room. Do you mind grabbing coffee for the clients? I was the lead analyst on the account. Let's keep your tone a little softer in emails. We don't want to come off as aggressive. Aggressive. That word. The one they use when a woman states a fact without apologizing for it first. Kriya noticed it too. One day after a meeting where Derek had cut me off twice to let a junior guy finish his thought, she pulled me aside. She's doing it on purpose, she said quietly. Doing what? Diminishing you, making you small. It's a pattern. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say she was reading too much into it, but deep down I knew she was right. The real turn came during Q3 planning. I'd spent weeks building a predictive model for client retention, something that could save the company hundreds of thousands of dollars. I presented it in a leadership meeting. Derek listened, nodded, asked a few questions. 2 days later, he presented his model to the executive team. My work, my analysis, my recommendations. He didn't mention my name once. I found out from Jenna, who heard it from someone in finance. When I confronted him, calmly, professionally, with receipts, he laughed it off. Come on, it's a team effort. You're being a little too sensitive about this. Sensitive. There it was. Not, I'm sorry. Not, let me correct that. Just sensitive. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to stop. He wasn't going to suddenly grow a conscience. He was going to keep taking, keep undermining, keep gaslighting. Because that's what men like Derek do. They find competent women, harvest their labor, and then discredit them when they dare to ask for recognition. But I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to cry in the bathroom or quit in frustration. I was going to do something much, much smarter. I was going to let the numbers speak for me. The breaking point came on a Thursday in October. We were 3 weeks away from our biggest client pitch of the year, a potential $2.3 million contract with the healthcare network.
I'd been the lead on the account from day one. I knew the client's pain points, their data infrastructure, their internal politics. I'd built the entire pitch deck. I'd run the models. I'd even coached the sales team on messaging. But when it came time to decide who would present, Derek pulled me into his office. "I think it's best if I take the lead on this one," he said, not looking up from his laptop. I blinked. "I've been running this account for 4 months." "I know, and you've done great work, but this is a high-stakes meeting and I think they'll respond better to a more senior presence." A more senior presence. Translation: a man. "Derek, I have a 98% close rate. I know this client better than anyone." He finally looked at me. His expression was soft, pitying almost. "Look," he said, "I know you're passionate, but you have a tendency to get a little emotionally involved. And in a meeting like this, we need to stay clinical, data-driven, rational." Emotionally involved? I felt something inside me crack. Not break, crack, like ice under pressure. "I am data-driven," I said slowly. "I know you think you are, but perception matters, and the client needs to feel confident. Trust me on this." Trust me. This same guy who'd stolen my work, who'd cut me off in meetings, who'd made me feel 2 inches tall every chance he got. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I said, "Okay." He smiled, relieved. "Great. I'll still need your support on the back end. You're invaluable." Invaluable. Just not valuable enough to be seen. I walked out of his office, sat down at my desk, and opened a new folder on my hard drive. I titled it Evidence. That was the day I stopped playing nice.
Here's the thing about revenge. It's not loud. It's not reckless. It's not breaking down in a meeting or sending a fiery email you'll regret. Real revenge is quiet. It's patient. It's a spreadsheet that never forgets. I started small. Every email Derek sent, I archived. Every Slack message where he took credit for my work, I screenshotted. Every meeting where he interrupted me or dismissed my input, I noted. Date, time, witnesses present. I built a timeline. I cross-referenced my project files with his presentations. I pulled metadata from shared documents to show who'd authored what. I logged every instance where he'd reassigned my work to someone else, always a man, and every time I'd been excluded from a meeting I should have been in. I didn't do this during work hours. I did it at night in my apartment with a glass of wine and a growing sense of clarity. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Priya noticed the change. "You've been quiet lately," she said one afternoon, leaning against my desk. "Just busy," I said. "He's still being a dick, though." "Yeah." "You okay?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I almost told her, almost said, "I'm building a case that's going to bury him." But I didn't, because the first rule of strategic revenge is tell no one. I said, "I'm fine, just keeping my head down." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. The close call came 2 weeks later. I'd been pulling data from our CRM system, client emails, project histories, revenue attribution. I needed it to prove that the accounts Derek claimed to have landed were actually mine. But our IT system logged data exports, and if someone in security noticed a large pull outside of normal project work, they'd flag it. I had to be smarter, so I did it in pieces, a little bit each day, nothing large enough to trigger an alert, just enough to build my case, brick by brick. One night, around 11 p.m., I got a Slack message from Sam, our developer. "Sam, you still working?" My heart stopped. Me. "Yeah, just wrapping up. Why?" Sam. "Saw some activity on the shared drive. Wanted to make sure it wasn't a bot or something." He was checking the logs. Me. Oh, yeah, that was me, just organizing some old files. Couldn't sleep, lol. A pause, 3 dots, then, fair. Don't work too late. I exhaled. That was too close, but I didn't stop. I couldn't, because in 2 weeks, Derek was going to present my pitch to my client. And when he did, when he stood in that room and took credit for 4 months of my work, I was going to be ready. Not with tears, not with anger, with numbers.
The day of the client pitch, I dressed carefully, not too formal, not too casual, polished, but not like I was trying too hard. I wanted to blend in, to be forgettable. Derek, on the other hand, wore his best suit. He was practically glowing with confidence. On the way to the client's office, he practiced his talking points out loud in the car. I sat in the passenger seat, nodding at the appropriate times. He didn't notice that I had brought a padfolio, or that tucked inside it was a printed copy of every slide in his deck, with timestamps showing when I had created them. The meeting went exactly as I expected. Derek was smooth, charming. He spoke with authority, gestured confidently at the slides, made eye contact with the CEO. He talked about our approach and our strategy and the insights we have developed. We, our. Never I built this. Never my analyst discovered. Just we. I sat quietly, took notes, smiled when appropriate. At one point, the client's CFO asked a technical question about the data model. Derek hesitated just for a second and then turned to me. "Why don't you take that one?" I answered clearly, confidently. The CFO nodded, satisfied. Derek smiled at me like a proud parent. I smiled back. And inside I thought, you have no idea what's coming. We won the contract, $2.3 million. The client signed the same day. Back at the office, Derek was treated like a hero. The executive team congratulated him. Someone ordered champagne. He gave a little speech about teamwork and execution. My name was mentioned once, as a support resource. I clapped along with everyone else. Priya caught my eye across the room. She looked furious on my behalf. I just shook my head slightly. Not yet. That night, I went home and finalized my documentation. 62 pages, charts, email threads, metadata, revenue attribution, a full breakdown of every project I had led, every idea I had generated, and every dollar I had earned for the company, all credited to Derek. I didn't send it to HR, not yet. Because here's the thing, HR protects the company, not you. If I went to them first, they'd bury it, they'd mediate, they'd coach Derek and move on. No. I needed this to be undeniable. I needed witnesses. I needed leverage. So I did something smarter. I scheduled a meeting with our CFO. Not to complain, not to accuse, to present data.
The meeting was set for a Tuesday at 2 p.m. I'd framed it as a revenue attribution analysis, something the finance team had been asking for anyway. The CFO, a woman named Margaret, who'd been with the company for 15 years, agreed without hesitation. I didn't tell Derek. When I walked into that conference room, Margaret was already there, along with the VP of Operations and, surprisingly, the head of HR. My stomach dropped. "Hope you don't mind," Margaret said. "I thought this might be relevant to some internal conversations we've been having." I nodded, keeping my face neutral. Of course. I opened my laptop, pulled up my presentation, and I began. I didn't editorialize, I didn't vent, I didn't say, Derek is a thief and a liar. I just showed them the numbers. Slide 1. Revenue by account, with original point of contact. Slide 2. Project ownership with document metadata. Slide 3. Email timestamps showing ideation and execution. Slide 4. A side-by-side comparison of my draft presentations and Derek's final versions.
I walked them through it calmly, clinically. As you can see, I said, there's a discrepancy between reported project leadership and actual contribution. I wanted to flag it for accuracy in our records. Margaret's expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. The VP of Operations leaned forward. This shows you originated all of these accounts? Correct. And Derek presented them as his own? The data speaks for itself. Silence. The head of HR cleared her throat. Have you discussed this with Derek? I raised concerns about credit attribution several times. I was told I was being too sensitive. Her eyes narrowed. He said that? Yes. Would you like me to pull the Slack thread? I already had it ready. She read it. Her face went very still. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, Margaret said quietly. We'll take it from here. I nodded, closed my laptop, stood. Just to be clear, I'm not asking for anything. I just thought the company should have accurate records. Margaret looked at me for a long moment. Understood, she said. I walked out, and then I waited. 2 days later, Derek was called into an emergency meeting with HR and the executive team. I wasn't there, but Jenna was walking past the conference room when it happened. She told me later that she could hear raised voices, that Derek came out red-faced, jaw-clenched. By end of day, an email went out to the whole company. Subject: organizational changes. Effective immediately, Derek Hayes will be transitioning out of his role. We thank him for his contributions and wish him well in his future endeavors. No farewell party, no champagne, just gone. The next morning, Margaret called me into her office. We've been reviewing the account structure, and we'd like to offer you Derek's position, Senior Manager, Analytics and Strategy. 20% raise, equity options, and full leadership of your accounts. I didn't cry. I didn't gush. I just said, thank you. I accept. She smiled. Good. You've earned it. As I walked out, I passed Priya in the hallway. She stared at me. What the hell just happened? I shrugged. The numbers spoke for themselves. She laughed, actually laughed. You absolute legend. In the weeks that followed, the office was different. People were quieter around me, more respectful. A few of the guys who used to talk over me in meetings suddenly started asking for my input, listening when I spoke. Funny how that works. Jenna asked me once, in a hushed voice over lunch, did you take him down on purpose? I looked at her. I just corrected the record. She grinned. Remind me never to cross you. I didn't feel vengeful. I didn't feel triumphant in some loud fireworks and champagne way. I felt calm. For the first time in months, I didn't wake up dreading work. I didn't have to brace myself before meetings. I didn't have to swallow my voice or soften my edges or apologize for being competent. I could just be. Priya got promoted 2 months later. We hired 3 more women for the analytics team. I made it a point to mentor them, to make sure they never had to smile through stolen credit or be told they were too emotional for daring to want recognition. I never saw Derek again. I heard through the grapevine that he landed at another company. I hope, for their sake, someone there is keeping a spreadsheet too. As for me, I stayed another year, then left to start my own consultancy. Turns out, when you have a proven track record, a documented one, clients trust you. They pay you. They respect you. And no one ever calls you emotional. So here's what I learned. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be cruel.
It doesn't have to make you into someone you're not. Sometimes revenge is just telling the truth, with evidence. They called me too emotional, but emotions weren't the problem. The problem was a system that punished women for having them while rewarding men for stealing their work. So I let the numbers speak for me. And here's the thing about numbers. They don't get interrupted. They don't get gaslit. They don't get told to soften their tone. They just are. If you're reading this and you've ever been called too sensitive, too emotional, too much, I want you to know something. You're not too much. You're just surrounded by people who can't handle all of you. And when the time comes, when you're ready, don't shout, don't cry, don't beg to be seen. Just build your case, document everything, and let the truth do the talking. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming undeniable.
Thank you for listening to my story. I know it's not a fairy tale. There's no dramatic courtroom scene, no public meltdown, no viral Twitter thread. But it's real. And if you've lived it, or something like it, I hope it reminded you that you're not alone, that your anger is valid, that your competence is not up for debate, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay quiet, stay sharp, and let your work speak louder than anyone ever could. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to fight for credit in the workplace? Have you ever been told you were too emotional when you were just being competent? Let's talk about it. And if you want more stories like this about resilience, self-respect, and poetic justice, hit that subscribe button, because I've got plenty more where this came from. Until next time, stay strategic, stay strong, and never, ever apologize for being brilliant. This is your storyteller, signing off.